Welcome back. Thank you so much for keeping it locked as we turn to probably one of the most vital conversations at the moment. I am going to say to parents out there, we're going to be talking about gender-based violence right now, so please use your discretion. If there are young ones in the room, you make that choice right now, but this is a conversation that we certainly as South Africans need to have right now. Last year, during the start of the national lockdown, South Africa saw an increase in women and child abuse. Gender-based violence is a widespread problem in the country, but it's also a pattern that is being repeated globally, in fact, in the United Kingdom, Brazil, and China. It's a global pandemic.
It is a global pandemic. Now, GBV is a serious issue that affects every aspect of life, and it can leave victims with a lifetime of trauma. Now, trauma counsellor Lana Snoyman, who works with victims of abuse, she joins us now via video call to chat about gender-based violence. It's not going to be an easy topic, but Lana, we are so grateful that you're able to join us. Good morning.
Morning, guys.
Lana, I mean, we're a warm and fuzzy breakfast show, so whenever we get the opportunity to join this kind of conversation and hopefully shift the narrative, even just an iota, it is something we embrace, but maybe a good way to approach it is practically. So let's start with the very definition. What are the different types of gender-based violence that you experience in your work?
Well, gender-based violence, by its very definition, Graham, would mean the different sexes acting out violently against each other. So whether it's male on female, female on male, and it perpetrates in various ways, whether it's psychological, physical, emotional. I mean, there's so many different ways of breaking down the gender-based violence into different categories, which results from the financial loss of food, loss of shelter due to loss of jobs, and all this from the breakdown of the economy.
So it all goes hand in hand, and I know that there are some people in certain instances where they find themselves in a situation and they're not sure whether this would be classified as abuse. Now, Lana, as a trauma counsellor, how would you define abuse?
Well, abuse can start very simply from a form of bullying. Bullying, knocking you down, knocking your self-esteem so that you don't feel worthy. And if you're in a situation where you are feeling vulnerable and people are attacking you, and it then leads to a physical interaction and a physical abuse whereby you are then being violated, that is the ultimate form of abuse. So it can start very subtly with knocking, verbal knocking, and then the bullying, and then it becomes more physical and can lead to all elements of physical endangerment, including rape.
We have seen it well publicized. South Africa experienced a spike in gender-based violence during the national lockdown last year. As you've said, there are so many contributing factors, socio-economic probably being a massive driving force. Are the numbers still as bad right now? And maybe added to that, just how bad are the numbers?
Yeah.
Graham, the numbers are really bad because since the start of COVID, people have lost their jobs even in greater numbers. There's a tremendous amount of retrenchments, and a lot of people are working from home, and it's not always the cornucopia for the ideal way of working, where previously we used to get up, go to work, and we'd see our family 8 hours later. Here we have all semblances of interruptions, disruptions, irritations, frustrations, noises, disruption of our daily patterns, and all of this leads to tremendous distress, which in turn exacerbates people's outlet. And unfortunately, it's led to a lot of aggression. And the numbers, unfortunately, are looking very dire.
I can imagine the numbers aren't looking great at the moment. Lana's not going anywhere. We're going to continue this conversation around trauma, especially when it comes to gender-based violence. And Lana Snoyman's going to be back. We're going to tackle on ways and what we can do to end the cycle of GBV.
And you can see on screen right now an emergency number that you really do need to have on speed dial: 0800 428 428 or 0800 150 150, or you can just simply send a please call me *120 *7867#. If you need to use that number, do it today. Don't wait a second.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Enough is enough. We continue our discussion centered on gender-based violence with trauma counsellor Lana Snoyman right now. We've been looking at the broader picture, and Lana, I'm going to put an impossible question to you right now because this seems like such a complex issue, but I'm sure it's something that you have thought about from many different angles as you offer assistance to those who have been through these traumatic experiences. What's at the root in terms of what we need to address to end gender-based violence in this country? What shift needs to happen?
Wow, Graham, we need to go right the way back to education in our primary schools. In fact, in our nursery schools, we should be educating with toys and dolls and educating our little ones into good play, bad play, healthy play. What are safe places? What are unsafe places regarding the body? You can touch here, you can't touch here. That's crucial. Those are the foundational educational practices. And then throughout the primary school phase and high school, there should be a far greater emphasis in educating children as to acceptable role modeling and what is good behavior, what is bad behavior, how to treat your elders. Respect is so crucial. And going forward, just respect of the opposite sex and expectations in relationships. I mean, today the expectations are just so off the charts. Instant gratification now fills a need. The old-fashioned way of respect, taking your time, getting to know somebody, not an instant sexual bond, not just jumping into something before you've ascertained the character traits of a specific person, not becoming too dependent on somebody too rapidly, judging, using your instincts. I could go on and on and on.
Does this start with the parents? If you're dealing predominantly with a generation that seems to have lost respect in itself and is so badly injured by the past that has clearly led to this mass shift in psyche, then does it fall on the role of teachers, on peers? Who should be bringing about this shift? Where do we need to start that educational drive?
Well, it's a systematic education. So if you're living in a very small enclosure with you the grandparents, then you're the children, and then the grandchildren, and they are witnessing violence, this intergenerational projection of violence goes right down to then acting out. And it's going to take a long time for this to be rectified. So it needs to be from the parents. Teachers need to be brought in, social workers, as many educational systems as possible to try and make this a normal conversation.
And it's a very important conversation, and I'm so happy we're having it this morning. Lana, I know a lot of people process trauma differently, but it's one of those things that always lingers, and there's always a memory of it. What are some of the long and short-term effects of abuse?
Well, first of all, abuse leads to a lack of self-esteem. If you have somebody who's perpetually knocking you down, be it verbally or physically, they will try and demean and belittle and break you down. So you have this semblance of poor self-esteem. I'm not good enough. And how can I then compensate? What do I have to do to be good enough in my perpetrator's eyes to make things right? So there's that overcompensation, which is not the right thing, because it's the perpetrator's fault, it's not the victim's fault. And I think we need to understand this. 90% of the time, it's the perpetrator and not the victim.
That's very
so that's one of the many ways in which the abuse acts out. Lack of sleep, lack of the body doesn't function properly. Your thoughts are clouded. Your judgment is thwarted. You won't be eating properly. Your concentration at school or at work, all of this becomes severely affected. You'll become very emotional. Sleep patterns disrupted.
Nothing short of life-changing, yes, we know that, and utterly devastating. How important then is counselling for people who have suffered trauma and abuse?
Counselling becomes crucial, Graham, because if you are needing a way out, you need to reach for assistance. So whether it's phoning the likes of Women and Men Against Child Abuse or Lifeline, or Power, or your command council, your gender-based violence command councils, right up to date with the latest advancements in technology, where you can just send an SMS and somebody will reach out to you. It's absolutely crucial to try and extricate you from this trauma and to help you step out of this violent act so that you can start having a new, healthier life.
All right, we're going to reiterate that number again to phone if you feel that your rights are being encroached upon in any way, or if you have experienced abuse. There are people ready to help you. You can phone the Gender-Based Violence Command Centre, their emergency number 0800 428 428 or 0800 150 150, or you can just simply SMS. You can send a please call me to *120 *7867 #. Please use that resource if you need to.
Hashtag enough is enough. We'll join with Lana Snoyman, trauma counsellor, a little bit later again, especially, and discuss on ways to report gender-based violence and abuse, so don't go anywhere.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Enough is enough indeed. Lana Snoyman is joining us to round off our conversation this morning. Thank you so much for breaking it down for us. We are talking about gender-based violence at the moment, the complexities that lie within, but I think one practical element has to be that there is a way that you can have your voice heard. How do you report gender-based violence and abuse? What is the best way to do it that helps you as the victim, Lana?
So, Graham, first of all, you've got to recognize that you are in this violent situation. So coming to terms with recognizing that you have to take action against your abuser, first of all, is very difficult, because very often one tends to find that the abuser or perpetrator is the breadwinner. So to come to terms with going to action against this person takes a lot of courage and strength, because that might mean an initial loss of a shelter. It might mean a loss of food, financial loss, and this they use to their advantage. Once you've got the courage to then pick up the phone or to reach out to a friend, you can either send an SMS, as I say again, to your Gender-Based Violence Command Centre. There's People Opposing Women Abuse Power. They've got a lockdown counselling number 076 694 5911. There's Women and Men Against Child Abuse. Their numbers 011 789 8815. There's Lifeline, which has a 24-hour crisis hotline, 0861 322 322. And of course, there's SADAG. So there are many areas of opportunity that you can turn to reach out. There's also the police station. You may reach out to a teacher, a social worker, a minister, anybody with whom you feel you can trust and have an open, honest conversation and a safe conversation in which you feel vulnerable enough to discuss your trauma.
Thank you, Lana. I was actually just thinking of that series, Big Little Lies, with Nicole Kidman, that had a similar storyline thread through it. How important is it for the victim to perhaps share with a close friend or someone? Because, you know, will people believe them if they've portrayed this picture-perfect life? Meanwhile, that's not the case at home.
There's judgment, yeah.
There's tremendous judgment. And this is why I say you've got to be able to take a deep breath and make yourself vulnerable, and releasing this to a trusted second party, be it a teacher, be it a close friend, be it a minister, be it somebody you have a close bond with, to reveal that the illusion of the relationship is actually not as it seems.
What is the best way to approach this if you are witnessing or you suspect abuse? Do you speak to the victim? Do you report it anonymously? What is the greatest amount of care that we can approach something like this with? What do you suggest you do if you have that inkling of a fear that someone is being hurt or abused?
The most important thing is that you do not endanger the life of the potential victim that you are suspecting is being abused. So if you find them in a place where they can have a conversation or they can message you, maybe perhaps delicately, you can have a tender conversation to say, I've noticed there's a change in your behavior. I've noticed you're very sad. Is there perhaps a conversation we should be having? Can I take you for a cup of coffee? Do you want to go for a walk? Is there some place that you might feel safe in which to talk to me? Have these open-ended conversations to try and release their terror and fear in which they might be able to trust you.
Very difficult conversation to have, especially as the parent to two beautiful children. Zoe and I are both obsessive kinds of people, and I think we both grapple with this issue in a very different way. But the most important piece of information that I think we can part with this morning is that there are resources, as you say, opportunities that might fit your personality type and help you just at least take that first step out of your situation. So Lana, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to keep all of these contact details up on all of our social media platforms, on our website for as long as possible. Thank you so much for the work you do on the ground level with obviously trauma patients, with your own victims, but and for helping us spread this message on a much bigger platform. We really appreciate you. Thank you.
Pleasure.
And to you at home, make sure that you get in touch and you contact any of the helpline numbers that's currently on your screen right now, and also seek some counseling and report abuse.